Coming in today, we have Mark Krumrine. Mark is a professional MMA and Muay Thai fighter and also the owner of Bulldog MMA in Carlisle, PA. Welcome to the show. Mark, how's it going today?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. And yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. Appreciate you joining us. Wanted to first kind of dive into your background in combat sports before we get into your gym. I know we used to train together at Gracie, did some rounds at a couple other places as well. How did you first get into mixed martial arts, Muay Thai, and where did you first start training and come back up through?
So, I'm an oldie in the sport at this point, but
Mhm.
yeah, it started originally. My grandfather, he boxed in the I guess it would be 30s and 40s. So growing up, grew up on a farm, and kind of had that hard work farm mentality. And we used to watch boxing back in the day together. So that kind of like at its first, smallest amounts, that was it. Living in Pennsylvania, I wrestled through it was like sixth grade till I got my driver's license, and cars became more important for a while. But actually, the thing that got me into the sport of MMA as a whole, I was actually I was watching Hoist Gracie fight Matt Hughes when Gracie came back there, and watched a couple fights on that card, and just seeing how some of the wrestlers were kind of dominating that night. I was like, I really think I could do this. And my buddy that was there at the time, he's like, no way, there's no way you could do it. It was actually a bet from him that I couldn't have I couldn't have one fight. And the original plan was just going to do one fight, just going to do it just to prove the guy wrong. And that was like 2006-ish or whenever that fight happened. And I just never stopped after I started training for a while. I was super out of shape when I started training. It was over 300 pounds, and started losing weight, living a little bit better lifestyle, and just never stopped. After I started doing it, it essentially became my life. And it's kind of weird to look back now thinking it was that long ago, but yeah, just haven't stopped. Been on that grind since.
And what do you think it was about that first fight of being like, oh, I'm just going to do this as a joke, not a joke, but kind of to prove this guy wrong and, say that I can go in there and fight. From that to, immediately after that fight, it seems like you were almost ready to get back in there again. And you said you changed your lifestyle and you were training all the time. What do you think changed after that fight?
Um, Honestly, I think going into it, not necessarily the fight, because I got very lucky. I don't want to say lucky, but I'm kind of blessed that I don't really get nervous or anything like that. So like, it was never a thing where like, oh my gosh, it's nerves, all these people watching. I wrestled in front of large groups, that kind of stuff. It was never anything like that, but it was honestly the training leading up to it, because very, very first day I ever trained with the group at York Mixed Martial Arts Academy, because I took privates for a little while just to get in the swing of things. And my very first day I stopped in was a sparring day, and I sparred with Jay Haas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how me and Jay Haas met. And Jay, like, you could probably get him to say it on camera, he didn't like me the very first day that we met. And I remember 135 or 140-pound Jay Haas trying to take my head off the first day we trained together. And obviously we're like brothers now, like, we're as tight as you can get. But that was what kind of made me take it seriously, because, I went in that, and just like a lot of wrestlers do, they go into it thinking, I'm going to be able to ragdoll all these people, and not that I didn't respect jiu-jitsu, but like I was one of those people that thought, well, my wrestling will cancel the jiu-jitsu out and I'll be good. And realized you know, quite short amount of time that I was wrong, and it wouldn't just save me. And I had to if I was going to do it, I had to dedicate, I had to go and dedicate my training to all of it. And once you jump into it, I think it's very much a sport. You either got to be all in or all out. So once I jumped into it, it was off to the races with that.
And once you jumped all in, you're training at the time at York MMA, and Jay is there. Who else are you training with? Who are your coaches at the time? You said this is around 2006, 2007, right?
Yeah, right around there. So it was basically me, Jay, um, George McGinnis, who owns York MMA. And really at the time, there wasn't a huge MMA following. Brett Myers was George's brother. Brett was a pretty experienced amateur. Jay was obviously pro. Um, but there was a lot of like hungry up and comers then. And it was, George is very much, George is at the time, it was very jujitsu based. And I learned so much, so much from George when I was there. And um, it was just a matter of like the way he would push us, like it was very hard training. It was not for the faint of heart. I remember lots and lots of days where like you're sitting there counting in your head, how many rounds do we got to do? Stuff like that. So in that way, it's I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am now. Not that I'm anything super special, but I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am now if I didn't get that toughness and that hard work instilled in me then. And I think sometimes that scares some of the people away from the sport. But I think if you're going to be anything, successful in the sport, that you need to do that. So I'm very happy that he pushed that on me, or pushed that on all of us, instilled that in us. But yeah, so like then it was really just me, Jay, George, and his brother at the time. But a lot of guys coming up, pushing each other, that kind of thing.
And then you're fighting amateurs. You're training at George's. Were there any other gyms in the area? Were you able to cross train anywhere? Was that the time when Blackman's was around? I don't know the exact timeline when he was still open.
So that went on. I want to say like until like, and again the dates might be a little off, but that went on, and I was pretty much just at George's until like late 2010.
Mhm.
And then Blackman's moved to Paxton Street, like by the Bass Pro Shops
Yep.
at the mall there. And Jay, obviously, he came up with like Jeff Smith and those guys when Jay was at Bob Bittner's place. And Jay, we went up there one day, and I knew where I was at, like as far as my jujitsu was obviously, at the time my jujitsu was my strong point. And I needed to get some different looks and stuff like that. And I started training at Blackman's then, and just I mean, walking in there, the killers they had, day one. Um, there was a little bit of time there where you would go in and you would train, and you're like barely keeping your nose above water. Like you just feel like you're getting drowned because, some gyms at the time, like, you'd have one or two good guys, but it was like, there was like murderers row of guys there at the time. And, there was a couple months there where it's like you get knocked down a couple pegs because you're used to being a little, maybe not necessarily the big fish in a small pond, but you're used to being able to handle some people because you train with them every day, the stuff they go for. And then you get bombarded with all these guys that are so talented. So there was a small amount of time there I was like, man, this is crazy, such another level, because it's so many people, big guys, little guys, fast guys, boxers, wrestlers, everything kind of mushed together. um, but I went to Blackman's, fought under them. We had like I remember the last time that I fought under them, it was like this crazy weekend. We had 13 fights that weekend, and we went 12-1, um, which is crazy just to have 13 fights in one gym, out of one gym in one weekend. There's people cornering people everywhere. But then Blackman shut down kind of abruptly, and we kind of bounced around a little bit. Jay had a place for a while, and then Jeff Smith, who was pretty much like the head guy at Blackman's. He opened up Unrivaled Athletics in Camp Hill. We trained there for a while. Had my pro debut there. Pro debut did not go overly awesome. Broke my orbital 15 seconds into the first round, and it was a war. I'm pretty sure the last I checked, we had like $60,000 in medical bills between me and my opponent. It was a slugfest. But we went from there. We moved to Carlisle. That's actually I didn't live in Carlisle at the time. Basically moved to Carlisle for the training and stuff here. Dustin Pegg bought the gym from Jeff, and basically throughout the time that we were there, I was running like the beginners classes and started to really get into the coaching side of it. We brought some guys up that just started with me and got them all the way up to a fight. Guys and girls had both. And then when Dustin decided to step away and focus more on the CrossFit side of it, I actually, when he decided on that, I didn't know that he decided on that, and I signed to fight. I signed to a short notice Thai fight for a title, and I went to the gym the next day and the doors were closed. So I had to decide real quick where I was going to go, and that's actually how I decided on Zach Kelly and Gracie.
Oh, okay, got you.
That it was definitely a haul, but with that fight coming up, it was originally only originally I was thinking I'll get through this fight and then I'll figure out where I'm gonna call home then, and then I trained there for like 2 weeks and I was like, this is where I'm gonna be. And I made the haul up there. It was like an hour and 20 minutes each way, 5 days a week, and I was there for a while, and train with you, train with a lot of guys, beat up Josh Carr every day. It's pretty fun stuff. And then it was almost, it was Daryl Porcher. He had his car accident or his bike accident, and me and Daryl stayed close throughout everything. And Daryl actually at one point had moved to Chicago and was training out at Pat Kern's gym. He came home and when he got hurt, a couple of my buddies are like, man, the amount of money you spend on gas to go to Gracie's all that time, 5 times a week, you could almost save money by renting a place and running classes close to your house. And it was kind of like a, oh yeah, right, joking type thing. And then I started looking into it. And I found through a friend of mine, found a place. It was actually kind of halfway between Carlisle and Mechanicsburg. It was an old wrestling room. Rented that for a while, and I said, well, I'll do it for a year and we'll see where we're at in a year. If I'm having class by myself in a year, I know I at least gave it a try and put the effort into it. And after a year, we had a decent little group there. We were we didn't have a beautiful gym, but we had guys that would show up and put the work in. And then Elise was basically up there, and we were getting to a point where we needed some more space, needed some more a better place. We had the building didn't heat very well and it leaked, that kind of stuff. And I got in where Unrivaled used to be, actually at the Carlisle. It was the Gold's Gym, now it's called Platinum Fitness. And that's where we've been cooking ever since. We've been, trying to get through the craziness of this, with the COVID and everything. But, that definitely, and it took everybody, everybody's had to deal with that, not just my gym in particular, but just trying to navigate the landscape of what you can do, try to keep that usual fighter's mentality, and you being a fighter too, we're the type of people we bust our face open and we're bleeding. You put some Vaseline on it and go back to training, or that kind of thing. Well, it just doesn't really work with the COVID. With COVID, you can't just I'm too tough for it type deal. You got to be smart about it. So, um, trying to navigate that's been a little tough, but we're doing our best and staying safe, that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. And, I think, like you said, everybody kind of is dealing with it a little bit differently. Some people aren't comfortable coming back. Some people are, some places are doing solo drills. Some are, going full clip sparring. Uh, but I wanted to talk to you more about your approach to training, approach to coaching, because you are, like you said, one of those old school guys. And the stories that I've heard from the Blackman room, the Unrivaled room, is that pretty much sparring was a fight. Every sparring session, you were going pretty hard. Now, today, there's a lot less of that, but it does still exist. How are you running classes? How are you sparring? What's your kind of approach to coaching now that you're the head coach at a gym?
So, like, definitely at Blackman's and Unrivaled to an extent, we definitely had that, like, I don't want to say it was as crazy as like the old school shoot box guys,
Mhm.
but we kind of had that. We had that mentality. The only way you can get ready for a fight is to put that intensity out there. Now we weren't, obviously we weren't throwing elbows and busting guys open left, right, and center, and stuff like that. But I mean, you would go in there and you'd get 8, 10 rounds on sparring days of a fight.
Mhm.
Um, what we what we realized, and unfortunately for Unrivaled at the time, we realized it too late, was the like 2010, 2012, everybody wanted to be a fighter. Like, you saw tap out everywhere, and you got everybody in there. You would get 100 people coming in trying to sign up, and whether they stuck around or not, sometimes they I hate to say it like this, but we used to get guys at Blackman's that would come in, sign up for classes, buy a T-shirt, and you never see them again until you were out somewhere, and you'd be like, oh, it's a Blackman shirt. And you'd be like, and they would say they would train there, and like, I'm there every night. Some of these other guys that are there every night, we never see them there. So like that was a thing in like 2010, 2012. And the reality of being a fighter hit so many people where it's like, it's not just wearing tap out shirts and stuff like that, like it was then. And some of the popularity died off, and we kept that intensity up, like we were going to still have those 100 people coming in.
Mhm.
So as a gym owner, you got to run that, like and it is especially hard for guys to have the old school mentality. You got to run that fine line between getting your guys ready, because you never want to undertrain them, or you never want to send a guy into the cage and them see high intensity for the first time in a fight.
Mhm.
And you also don't want to scare people away from the sport / give them a bad taste by throwing somebody in there, that doesn't know what they're doing. And, oh, hey, it's sparring day, it's just a fight. So it was definitely a little bit of a learning curve. And honestly, a lot of how I do things is just molded between all the gyms I came from. Like, Zach, when I was there and Damien, the way they ran classes, the way George ran classes, Jeff Smith, Steve Blackman, Dustin Pegg, when those guys had the gyms. I'm not saying that if you look at my stuff, it's not necessarily like a carbon copy of any one of them. It's just like I mold a lot of the stuff in, and I'm always trying to like stay up on some of the new techniques and stuff like that, because you can't run a gym and make any money if nobody wants to come because it's too tough, or they're getting beat up all the time. So you got to run that little bit of we have like a beginners program type deal, where we separate the class. If you're advanced guys go to one side, and beginners go to another. And nobody's obviously nobody's forced to spar or anything like that, but definitely a little bit different than the Blackman days. That's not to say that there aren't days that me and Daryl have we joke around about it. That everybody that watches us spar owes us like 1999 because it's like pay-per-view fights in there.
Yeah.
But me and Daryl have sparred so much over the years. I mean, that's just how we are. Even on light days, and I'm sure you've run into this too. It's like, oh, we're just going 50% today. And then you get that one punch that feels like maybe he put 60 on it. So you up yours, and then it just turns into full sparring. But definitely, it's a little different. You gotta appease everybody. You gotta move some of the guys along different speeds than others. We have a good group now. Like we have a good group. We have like a what I like to call like a base group of people who show up every day, and those guys are down to spar if we go hard. They're down to roll hard. Roll high intensity if we go high intensity. And then we have some beginners who are just like they're just getting into it, and you gotta bring them along slowly. So again, it's just it's navigating the landscape as it changes. We're lucky enough to be in a very nice sized gym, like a regular gym as well. And that's one of the things like we offer that a lot of like that it's hard for other places to offer. Like you become a member at our place, you get the membership at the regular gym, and because people see us with the t-shirts and stuff like that, we've had some guys come back. Some guys are like really big, large lifting guys, and have tried it, and some stick with it, some don't. But yeah, it's a learning thing. It's one of those sports. It's not. I always say this at our gym. It's not checkers. So there's always going to be some, hard days, hard workouts, stuff like that. But to get better at this sport, I feel like this is one of the few sports where you can't get better just watching YouTube and thinking you know how to do it. You got to actually put it to the test. So, it's not quite as bad as the Blackman days that that you used to hear about, but there's definitely some hard sparring days, and there's definitely some days we just have fun and try to keep the mood and the morale up, and we're doing a pretty good job of that.
And that's kind of, the mix that I think most gyms try to strive for is, got anybody competing. Like you said, you don't want somebody to go out for their first jiu-jitsu tournament or their first MMA fight and see full speed for the first time that day, because the odds of them doing well are not very good.
No.
But then on the other hand, you don't want to be scaring off people that it's their first day, and they could be one day a pretty good fighter, pretty good jiu-jitsu player, but on their first day, nobody knows what they're doing unless they're a pretty good wrestler and they can, take somebody down, hold them in side control. That's usually not the case for most people. Now you said you have a pretty good core group of people, and then you're getting new people in, pretty regularly. What's next for Bulldog? What's 2021 hold in store?
Well, that sort of depends on like what this pandemic, how that pans out. Hopefully, I always try to keep a pretty, bright outlook on it, and I try to keep my guys, you know, anybody that's done the sport, it's not always fun to wake up the next day sore, stuff like that, and it's especially not fun when you got guys that have been training and they were just getting ready to take that step for their first amateur fight or something like that, and you see them, you can tell they're losing a little bit of that vigor, because it's like nobody's putting shows on right now, and understandably so. Can't make any money if you can't have anybody there. You can't sell tickets. So I mean, hopefully the pandemic kind of it goes away enough that we can be having shows and stuff like that. We got a couple guys that by the time that all pans out, I think we're going to have like 2 or 3 new guys that are going to be, making their debuts. We got, Daryl's right in, they were saying he might be on a short list for like short notice fights right now, because UFC's always got, fallouts and stuff like that. And a lot of the international fighters can't come here to fight. So like we're just keeping Daryl ready. And then as soon as they start having fights, I know I'd spoken to Mike Bickings once this all pans out about, getting back in there myself. But yeah, we're just it's a little bit of a cheesy saying, but we're trying to stay ready so we don't have to get ready.
Mhm.
And just waiting this out and trying to have fun and improve in the meantime, so that we maybe, some of my amateurs, I was telling, actually, just last night we had a real tough, real hard wrestling practice, and I was telling them, this is the time where you have a chance to kind of get a little bit of a leg up on the competition, because if they're not training or they're not taking it seriously now because they don't have a fight lined up, and you're in here busting your ass, by the time they're getting ready for their fight, you're already ready and you're just fine tuning it. So, we're just trying to stay ready, keep it fun, and just keep improving, because if you're not improving, it's a really terrible sport to be in.
Oh yeah, and like you said, I think everybody at this point is just kind of staying ready because it is out of our control, right? We have no clue when amateurs are going to be fighting again, or when there's going to be crowds, and different things like that. So stay ready. I know your guys will be ready. That's something that I don't think people have to wonder about or worry about coming out of your gym. They'll know what it's like to be in the cage or be in there and in the ring and fight. Looking forward to seeing you back in the cage, some of your guys back in the cage too, and hopefully I'll be down in Carlisle sometime soon. We'll get some rounds in together.
Doors always open. That's one of the things, like, we really like, you know, not at any of the gyms that I've ever trained at, but you see some gyms have that, like, if you're training here, you only train here, and they don't like you going other places, stuff like that. And luckily, I never ran into that when I was coming up through. But, like, to me, especially when I went with Daryl to Vegas and seeing guys that I saw, Henry Hooft
Mhm.
running like some stuff with Michael Johnson and a couple guys, and watching how he teaches. And then I was watching one of the guys from American Top Team teach in another room, or not teach, but running through some drills and stuff like that. And they couldn't have been farther on opposite sides of the spectrum, but as far as how they taught and stuff like that, but doesn't mean that, like, the material wasn't right. So, like, one thing I always preach, like, obviously I want my guys to train with the team for a majority of the time, but I always tell them, if you want to go get looks, like, get other looks. You never want to see something for the first time in a fight. So, doors always open, and we every Thursday, it's always, we do open sparring. If you're a visitor, you got to pay $10 just to, because you're going to get full use of the other gym. So you can use the sauna, you can use the showers, you can use the bathroom and all the other facilities. It's $10, but everybody's invited. I don't care what gym you're from. I don't care if I had a fight with that person before. I'm always, I'm in pretty good, I never fought anybody that I really didn't like. So, um, you know, doors are always open. I like seeing new guys in the gym, and as silly as it sounds, I like getting beat up a little bit, because if you're beating me up, you're going to be teaching me something in the meantime. So, if you're ever down in Carlisle, come down and choke me out a little bit, beat me
All
up,
right.
down.
Awesome, Mark. Yeah, I'll head down there. I'll see you soon. It was a pleasure, catching up today. Good luck with the gym. Looking forward to seeing your guys on some cards soon, and maybe seeing you back in the cage as well.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Yep.